How to build trust through a story. Let me tell you a story. I once had a roommate, and that roommate always loud, obnoxious, and most of all, he's confident. One day, me and my roommate was just out and about, just walking the trail to school, enjoying life, and we stumbled across a group of people. They were, let's say the least, they were annoying. They were a bunch of prick. That's what I call it. They were a bunch of prick. And we were just about to walk away until those prick decided to yell across the room saying, "Hey, come over here, dumbass." Those type of shit. So we came up to them, and being the confident roommate that my roommate is, he was like, "Yo, what's up, guys? What you up to?" And I was baffled because I never think that this should actually happen in real life, So I just stood there until they uttered out a word like, "Yo, nice shirt, bro." I was like, "Yo, shit, thanks, dude." So that's how we met new friends at our new school. Okay, that's a pretty corny story, but that's the only thing that I really think of on the top of my head out of nowhere. So that story is not really real. I had part of my experience in there, but most of all, I blew it up out of proportion. So the listener are more engaged. Nothing really happened. We didn't come across a group of prick or anything. We come across a group of people, and they complimented us, and I thought at the start they were prick, but not really. They were really nice people, and we made a friend off of them. So what was the point of me telling you that? Right there, I show you some of my personal life and some of my thought process, some of my vulnerability. That storytelling allow people to connect to you, especially in sales. And I found that storytelling is the best way for you to bridge the gap between the indifference between you and your client. So yesterday, I had this client who was an entrepreneur as well. And I was telling him a story about how I started a business in drop shipping. I tried e-commerce, and I tried construction. And now, after all the struggle and all the cold calling, all of that stuff, I landed here. So I was telling my background story, and they were like, "Oh wow, you came from another country, learned the language here, and managed in a couple of years build yourself a business." And he was like, "Wow, I remember a time when I started my business. I respect a lot people who start a business because they have the grit to do it. And he started telling me how when he was young, he was taking this degree and it wasn't for him. And he decided to pursue a business. He built 2-3 businesses. He sold it all. And now he really enjoyed the firm he really enjoyed working with the firm that he sold the business to. And now he works as a business broker. Pretty interesting journey. And I was able to establish that connection through storytelling. And in today's video, I'm going to show you how to build connection through storytelling so you and your client could connect better. And by connecting better, you could have that better sales. Because I'll be honest with you, there are a lot of digital marketing company out there, and what stood out for my client that picked me was that I connect with them and they say, hey man, you're a pretty down-to-earth guy, you're not making any crazy promise or anything, you are just a person, and I like that about you. So that's why a lot of them have worked with me. So there are 4 main strategies to storytelling. First is storytelling through your own perspective. So what that means is you telling your own experience of something else. So for example, I was telling you that story about my roommate being confident, but that was all in my perspective. That's how I take it in. And by doing that, it allows the listener to gauge more into who you are. So that's the first way of telling the story, telling it in your first perspective. The next is telling a story an action-based story. So an action-based story is a story that describes about what you are doing and how you are feeling compared to what the actual things that happen is. So a action-based story will be like, hey, I stumble across the room knocking my water bottle over, and everything was dark. I was lost. So instead of just saying, I have anxieties, doing all those action allows you to bring your story a bit more alive, and people can picture what type of anxiety you have. So that's what an action-based story is something that you tell that describe your action, why you do something. And number 3 is a story that relates to a message. So I believe that every story should serve 3 purposes: to inform, to persuade, and to make a point. So to that story about to tell a story, to make a point, you must have a message, obviously. Alright, my mind was running blank there. But to tell a story, you should have a point. And that point should either come in at the beginning or at the end. Or like, here's the story about how I learned why sales is so important to the daily life. Okay, so that's what the story is going to be about. Why sales is important to daily life. And then I would go into one day, I went out, talked to these girls, and because of my sales skill, I was able to get her number, blah, 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 blah. And from there on, I realized that there are more to sales than just business. Something like that. That was me making a point. The last one I've kind of already hinted to this was telling a story to persuade. So when you tell a story to persuade, so this happened a lot in the sales. The first story that you are gonna tell is a story about yourself. So in sales, you're gonna start with a story about yourself so you can connect with the client. And once that happens, you're gonna make that pitch. You're gonna make that pitch, and people are gonna have objection. So instead of just answering straight out the objection, you should say, "Hey, John, let me tell you a story. We had this client once who would work with us. They have exact same problem as you. He was reluctant to work with us. He was actually in your area as well, and he was starting these type of businesses. And once he started working with us, we have discovered that his problem wasn't lying into his lead generation. He wasn't getting enough client because his team wasn't doing the work. So how about this? If his team was doing the work and he was just buying lead gen after lead gen, and all of that lead would be stuck in the pipeline that never get worked through. So from there, we went in and replaced his whole team, and we have helped him to scale ever since. So let me tell you this, John. If you work with us, we could help you not only build out a system to find the leads, we make sure that your lead closes. That's why we guarantee a closing it. We get a commission off of it. See, that's the story to persuade. Like, oh man, that makes sense. Blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, that's pretty much the 4 ways to tell a story. And telling a story is one of the most important thing and the most powerful thing, because people nowadays have such short attention span that if you don't tell a story, they will never be engaged. So keep that in mind. People are always on their own head unless it's a story, because people for some reason love story. So yeah, that's how you tell a story. And if you want a system where you get 5 to 10 clients every month, just check out my free course. I have put everything that I've learned in there so you could build that system by yourself for free. Thank you for watching. Other than that, later.